Hello students, welcome back. So in this session, I'm going to be talking about conditional if and else statement. So following is a general expression of this if and else. If a Boolean expression is true, then you perform these statements, you execute these statements. Else, if otherwise, if this expression is true, if this Boolean expression is true, then you perform these statements, you execute these statements. And likewise, if this Boolean expression is true, then then you execute these statements. Otherwise, if none of these expressions are true, then you perform this particular statements. Okay, you execute these statements. So this is your general format of your conditional if and else statement. All right, let's work with some examples to help us understand this. So I'll copy this, paste it over here. So in this case, I'm checking if a student score is more than 5 or not. If it's greater than 5, then it's going to execute these statements. This one, this one, this one. Now, it's only going to execute these three statements only if the student score is more than 5. Otherwise, it will not execute this. After this conditional test is done, at the end, it's going to print this. If I run this, and in this case, it's going to print the student score is above average. That's a good result. Let's celebrate. So these three lines, they are printed because the student score is more than 5. In this case, basically, indentation is what controls the block of this if statement. If I change to 3, and if I run this, it's going to print moving on to the next evaluation, just this line. It would not print these three sentences because this condition is not true. Now, let's say you want to use now if and else clause over here. So in this case, I'm checking if a student score is greater than 5. If it is greater than 5, then you wanted to print these messages, same message as the one on the top. Also, now I'm using my else clause. I'm saying if this condition is not satisfied, then else to print these statements right here. So in this case, let's run this, and my student score is 4. So if I run this, it's gonna print the student score is below average. There might be room for some improvement, and moving on to the next evaluation. As you can see, it prints these statements right here. And it does not print this right here. Okay, it actually bypasses this. And the reason it actually skips this is because your score is greater than 5 is that condition is not true. So if this condition is not true, it's going to come to the else clause over here. Like now, if I change this to, let's say, 6. So in this case, my score is 6 and 6 is greater than 5. So this thing is true now. This condition, this Boolean expression is true. So if this condition is true, then it's going to execute these statements now. If I run this, and there you go. You see it executes these three statements, these three print statements right there, and then it bypasses these two completely now. And then at the end, it prints moving on to the next evaluation, moving on to the next evaluation. In this case, a user enters a number. Let's just create some extra cells. All right. So in this case, a user enters a number and the program will display a message if the number is even and or odd. Okay, either the number is even or odd, it's going to display a message. So num equal to input, enter a number, and then I'm converting that number into integer because the number that you get from your user, it will be string format. So we're converting into an integer. This is called type casting. And then I'm dividing by number. I'm dividing by number by 2. Okay, if the remainder is 0, then print even number, otherwise print odd number. So let's run this, enter a number, let's say enter 6, and there you go, even number. So what just happened was the number, when it prompted the user for enter number, the user enters 6, it gets converted into integer because 6 is by default, when it takes the input from the user, it's going to be a string, and then I divide my integer number by 2. If my remainder is 0, okay, if this condition is true, then it's going to print even number, otherwise it's going to print odd number. In this case, it prints even number because that condition is true. Let's run this program again, and this time we give something else. Let's say I give 5. Hit enter and it prints odd number. Prints odd number because this condition is not true, so it comes to this else clause. Now, this is a program that displays a message depending on a person's age. So in this case, I'm using if and else clause over here. So there's a if condition, there's a else if, and there's a else clause. In the previous one, there was a if and else. This was just if. This was else and if and else. And over here now I'm using if and else condition. Okay, so let's run this program. It's gonna ask, enter your name. So let's say I enter my name, Ash. Enter your age. Let's say enter my age, 32. Enter, and hello Ash, you are younger than a 100-year-old man. So what's happening? This condition right here, okay, this is actually checking if my age is less than 100, it's going to print hello. Using my f string, it's going to print hello name, you are younger than a 100-year-old man. If my age is equal to 100, is exactly same as 100, then it's going to print wow name, you are 100, you are already 100-year-old this year. Otherwise it's going to print hey name, you are older than 100-year-old man. All right, so in this case, my age is 32. So this condition gets satisfied. So it prints this message right here. All right, let's run this program again. And this time I'm going to type my age as 100. Age 100. So since I'm typing my age 100, it's going to print this statement right here because this clause gets true. Okay, my age is equal to 100, so it's going to type wow, and then my name, whatever the name was, you're already 100 years this year, and it prints this message. And likewise, if you want, you can do some more. You can actually now run this program again, and this time type maybe 120. Enter. Oops, sorry. Okay, name. I actually, you know what? Name can be a number in this case, so I just made a mistake. Let's just call it 120 again. All right. Hey, 120, you are older than 100-year-old man. You see, it prints, hey, 120, which is right there. You are older than 100-year-old man. Okay, and let's just to make this correction right here, let's call it Ash, and let's make it 120. There you go. All right. Now, let's say you want to do some calculation inside your if and else clause. Okay, so in this case, what's happening is that this is a program that's based on the user, based on the age that the user enters. It's going to tell the user in which year is he going to turn 100. So this is my program, and let's run this. Enter your name. So let's say my name is Ash, and let's say age. Let's say my age is 98. Enter, and then it's going to tell you, hello Ash, you will turn 100-year-old in the year 2027. So it's going to tell me that today, if this is the current year 2025, so in year 2027 my age is going to be 100-year-old man. So the logic that's happening is right here. So it's checking if my age is less than 100, then when am I going to turn 100? Well, it's going to be my current year, right, plus 100 minus my present age. If my present age is 98, so 100 minus 98 is 2. So it's going to take this 2025, which is this current year, okay, and it's going to add 2 to that. And then I'm going to print, hello Ash, you will turn 100-year-old man in the year, and then it's going to print this number, which is calculated from here. All right. So you can run this again, and this time you can type something else. Maybe you want to type Ash, and let's say the age is 100. And there you go. Wow, Ash, you're already 100-year-old this year. It prints this message. In this scenario, this is another application of if and else. Let's create some more cells. So in this scenario, let's say you have to create a logic where students are given grades based on their marks. If the marks is between 100 and 90, they'll be given A. If it's between 80 and 90, B. 70 and 80, C. If it's less than 70, give them F. All right, so this is the logic. If the marks is more than 90, okay, if the marks is more than 90, print grade A. Congratulations, your parents would be proud. Else, if the marks is more than 80, okay, now it's basically in this clause right here, it's executing this condition. If the marks is more than 80, then print grade B, good work. Else, if your marks is more than 70, meaning if it's like this, more than 70, then print grade C, good work, but you can do better. Otherwise, if none of these conditions are satisfied, that means this is going to be the only one that's left. And that's going to print grade F, buddy, wake up, start studying. If I run this, it's going to say grade F because 55 does not pass this, it's not here, and it's none of these conditions satisfy, only this one satisfies. But if I change my marks to, let's say, 95, okay, let me just move this over here. Yeah, If I change my marks to 95, you see grade A, congratulations. It comes and execute this part because 95 falls over here. If I change this to 85, 85, it's going to fall in this condition. So in this case, it's going to print grade B, good work, and so on and so forth. Okay, you can also combine your if with or statement, and that makes it a very powerful. And anytime when you do coding, you will actually find your if with or statement very common, or and, including and too. So check if the age is less than 13 or greater than 65. Maybe you have to design a code, and in the code you have to check if a person is eligible. Maybe if it's a child or if it's senior citizen, maybe you want to give them discount, or maybe you want to use some type of condition on them. So in this case, you can actually use your if condition. So I'm checking if the age is less than 13 or age greater than 65. So let's say the age is 16. So if age is less than 13, or I'm using or clause, or age greater than 65, then you execute this statement, otherwise execute this statement. If I run this, it's going to execute you are eligible for an adult ticket, because it 16, it fails over here. It does not satisfy this condition. If it does not satisfy this condition, it actually prints this. On the other hand, if I type my 16, I change 16 to maybe 12, all right, and I run this, it's going to tell you you are eligible for an adult or a senior ticket, because this condition has turned out to be true. Likewise, if I change this to maybe 70, if I change this to 70, my age is going to become greater than 65. In that case, it's still going to execute this statement, because my or clause, if you remember from my tutorial from the or, one of the condition has to be true. That's all it takes for the or. One of the condition has to be true in order for this whole expression to be true. All right. One of the very common application of this that I have used many times, and I've seen other people use it too, is asking a user whether he wants to continue. Okay, so let's say you ask a user input, do you want to continue, and you're giving a yes and no, and you're converting that everything into lowercase. You're removing all these empty spaces and you're converting into lowercase. All right, and then let me remove this. Don't need this. And then you check if the user input equal to yes or user input equal to no. You know what, let me remove this part too. Don't really need this checking. So if the user input equal to yes, and if the user input equal to no, then thank you for your response. Otherwise, invalid input. So here the user has to enter either yes or he has to enter no. He cannot enter anything else. If I enter this and I type the number, if I type my character, let's say yes, and it says thank you for your response. Let's run this again. And now if I type, let's say YESSS, and if I enter, it's going to say invalid input. Please enter yes or no, because this condition, it got failed over here. Okay, next one. Uh, then you can also use if in combination with your and. So let's say you have right here. Let me just copy this, bring it over here, and let me make some more cells over here. So this way, don't have to keep adding some more. All right. So in this case, I'm checking if a user's login credentials, and I have to use and in this case. So if the username is admin, basically first I'm going to ask a user to enter the input, enter the username and enter the password. So if the username is admin and the password is 12345, then I'm going to print successful login. Otherwise, it's going to print invalid login. So let's run this. And there you go, enter username. Let's say my username, I'm entering Ash, and my password is 12345. Enter, and it says invalid login. And the reason it's giving invalid login, because the both conditions have to be true. You see, I'm using AND clause. So in AND clause, this and this has to be true. All right, let's run it again. And enter admin, and then password 12345. Enter, and there you go, successful login. This is how login happens, by the way. When you go to the websites, you enter your username, you enter your password. Behind the scene is using AND clause. Maybe you work in a retail, maybe you work in a retail shop or a mall, and you have to write a logic. And the logic is this, that the membership status, if a customer comes and his membership is gold and his purchase amount is more than 100, okay, so then you want to give him this 20% discount. Okay, so maybe you want to implement this logic. You can do that too. You can say if membership status equals to gold, okay, double equal to, by the way, mind you, mind this. If it's equal to gold and the purchase amount is more than 100, then print this statement. You are eligible for 20% discount. Otherwise, print this, you are not eligible for discount. In this case, gold 150, and it says you are eligible for 20% discount. On the other hand, if let's say his let's say is 30, the purchase amount is only 30. If I run this, it's going to say you are not eligible. And the reason it says not eligible is because although his membership is gold, this is gold, okay, gold is gold, this is true, but this one is false. You see, this fails over there, and because this one fails, this whole thing is going to fail. This whole thing is going to be false. So that's why it skips this part and it comes straight over here. You are not eligible for discount. Then you can also combine if with and or. Very common. That happens a lot. So in this example, let me just so let's say you have a score equal to 30, an extracurricular activity, a student takes an extracurricular activity, let's say he or takes only 2 extracurricular activities. So if the score is more than 50 and the number of extracurricular activity he takes is more than or greater than 2, or his score is greater than 80, if this condition is true or this condition is true, then write this thing, you are eligible for scholarship. So basically what's happening over here is that the student is getting eligible for scholarship only if his score is greater than 50 and his extracurricular activity is 2 or greater. That should be one condition, or it could be this, score is greater than 80. So if I run this, in this case my score is, let's say student score is 30 and extracurricular activity he took like 2, and let's run this and look at that, you are not eligible for scholarship because it actually failed. Where does it fail? Well, this part is true, right? But it fails over here. So since this is, it fails over here, so I mean this is false. False and true is false. So this is false, and this thing is clearly false. Score is not greater than 80, right? It's 30. Okay, so let's change this score to maybe uh, let's change this to 60. 60. So in this case, now if you run this, it's going to print you are eligible for the scholarship. Although his score is not more than 80, but this condition is satisfied right here. So I'm using and or in this case. I'm saying a score is greater than 50, which is true. 60 is greater than 50, and the number of extracurricular activity is greater than or equal to 2, which is true. So this whole thing is true. This whole expression is true. So true or, now it doesn't matter whether this is true. In the or clause, all it takes is one condition to be true, and that's why it prints this thing. Make sure you understand this, play around with some logic, change these numbers to 50, 30, this way you'll have a good idea. You can also check if an element is inside a container. So this is another very commonly used scenarios, very oftenly used, is check for membership. So basically I'm checking, let's say this is my shopping list, milk, bread, eggs. By the way, your shopping list would be a lot longer than this, but this is a smaller one. So this shopping list, you're checking if the item in shopping list, so there's an operator called in. So I'm using my operator in and I'm checking if item is inside your shopping list. If it is in, then I'm going to print item is on the list. Otherwise, it's going to print item is not on the list. So let's run this. And in this case, it says milk is on the list because milk, as you can see, is in there. So there's an operator called in, it does that. What if I do something else? Let's say I type Milky Way. Okay, so I put Milky Way over there and let's see what it does. Oh, Milky Way is not on the list. All right, you can put butter and run this. Is not on the list. And then there is a nested if statement. So you can actually put if within an if statement. You can do that. The logic is going to work. So in this case, this is my a nested if statement. So this is my logic. If the age is more than 18 and the student, and let's say the individual has a license, then he is eligible to drive. If the age is more than 18 and he has no license, then he cannot drive. If the age is less than 18, then not eligible to drive. So how do you implement a condition like this? This is your statement, and you have to execute this statement using if and else clause. So let's do that. So let's say my age is 12, my has license equal to false. Okay, let's say this is the value. So in this case, the way I'm going to implement, if you look over here, if age is more than 18, right? So if age is more than 18, then after that you have two conditions. Two condition is if has license or does not have license. If the student has license, then it's going to print you are eligible to drive. If age is more than 18 and has license, okay, then eligible to drive. If age is more than 18, if age is more than 18 and no license. So in this case, this if this statement gets false, it's going to automatically come over here. That means he does not have a license. In this case, it's going to print this. You are eligible to drive, but you need a driver license. And if age is less than 18, so in this case, if age is greater than 18 is this clause, but in this case, if let's say age is not greater than 18, if it's in this case, it's going to come over here. That means age is less than 18. Then it's going to print you are too young to drive. All right, so let's run this, and there you go. You are too young to drive, because this clause is not satisfied. Okay, and so it's satisfying this is following this logic. If age is less than 18, then not eligible to drive. All right, let's change this to age maybe 20. All right, 20, but he does not have driver license. All right, let's see what he does. You are too young to drive. So see, age is greater than 18, right? Oops, sorry. What did I do? 20. All right. Okay, age is 20. So if I run this thing, you see age is more than 20, right? This part is true. But this part fails. This is not true. So it's gonna print you are eligible to drive, but you need a driving license. On the other hand, if I change this to true, okay, if I change this to true, age is 20, has license, right? Age has 20, greater than 18, and has license. Great, he has a license. So it's going to print this statement right here. If I run this, and it prints you are eligible to drive. Okay, thank you, students.